justice's ruling that it is illegal for workers to be dismissed from a job based on sexual orientation and gender identity. NBC Justice correspondent Pete Williams joins us with all the details. Pete, what can you tell us?
Well, this is a stunner, frankly, coming from this conservative Supreme Court that no longer has Anthony Kennedy among the justices, the man who wrote all the gay rights decisions before. But today, the Supreme Court has ruled that Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which makes it illegal for employers to fire employees on the basis of sex, also covers sexual orientation. Now, the lower courts had been divided on this, and the Trump administration sided against this ruling, saying no, that when Congress passed the Civil Rights Act in 1964, nobody was thinking about sexual orientation. It was simply discrimination against men or women. But today, the Supreme Court said, no, that's not the case. Sexual orientation is considered part of that 1964 Civil Rights Act. Now, this is a victory for an Atlanta man, Gerald Bostock, who worked for the county and was fired after his employer discovered that he was on a gay softball team. He sued, and the lower court said, sorry, you can't sue under the Civil Rights Act. It doesn't cover sexual orientation. And today, the Supreme Court said that's wrong. It's an issue that had divided the lower courts. Now, on the same day that this case was argued, the Supreme Court heard a separate case on whether it's also illegal under this same civil rights law to fire someone for transgender status. We don't have that decision. The Supreme Court, as you know, in this time of the pandemic, is not actually in the courtroom. All this is happening virtually. And frankly, all we have so far in the decision is the very first page. But I'm told now that it's starting to line up, and the vote is 6-3 with Neil Gorsuch, one of the Trump appointees, joining the Chief Justice John Roberts and the court's 4 more liberal members to form this 6-3 majority. So this is a huge thing, and I would just say one other thing about this, Kate. Gay rights groups considered this even more important than the fight for marriage equality, because while not every gay person in America gets married, most gay adults want or need a job. And as of just a few minutes ago, it was possible to get married on Sunday and legally fired on Monday, but no more. Kate?
And Pete, you mentioned Neil Gorsuch. You had told us when we were preparing for this possibility today that he argued in the arguments, indicating that he might accept this argument that these rights are covered by that statute.
Yeah, he said that actually more in the transgender argument, but he seemed to be among the conservatives the one that was distantly possible to maybe be peeled away to join the majority, and that's what he's done here. We'll have to see what the logic is as this this thing is. I guess there's so many people on the Supreme Court website that the pages are loading very slowly, but at least we know what the bottom line is, Kate.
Well, why don't we let you read that, Pete, and I'll jump over to NBC's Peter Alexander at the White House, who's with us as well. Peter, this is a landmark ruling. Any reaction yet from the White House?
No, Kate. Actually, we just reached out to the White House moments ago. We haven't heard from them yet. The president's been tweeting on other topics over the course of this day. This has not been top of mind from him. But, LGBTQ activists and allies have said there really has been this whiplash between the Obama administration and the Trump administration in terms of their policies on issues related to the gay community. So this will certainly be hailed as a victory in those communities. What the White House's position on this will be interesting. We wait to hear from the president on this topic as we hear from him a little bit later. We know there has been a lot of focus on some of the other issues that the court's been reviewing as well, including issues as they relate to the president's taxes and the issue of DACA. On this one, though, certainly we're still waiting to hear from the president how he tries to frame this, even though his administration has been pushing to try to roll back a lot of the Obama administration's efforts to provide new opportunities and rights to members of the gay community. Kate?
And let me go back to Pete Williams. Pete, have you had a chance to read any of this yet? And does this now apply nationwide?
Yes, the answer is it does apply nationwide. Now, some states, a small number of states, had their own laws that made it illegal for employers to fire people on the basis of sexual orientation. But now this is the guarantee that applies nationwide. So the majority opinion was written by Neil Gorsuch. So clearly the Chief Justice assigned him the opinion, which gives it extra punch. And let me just read a couple of lines from what he says. He says, sometimes small gestures can have unexpected consequences. Major initiatives practically guarantee them. In our time, few pieces of federal legislation rank in significance with the Civil Rights Act of 1964. He talks about Title VII, outlawing discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. And he says, today we must decide whether an employer can fire someone simply for being homosexual or transgender. The answer is clear. An employer who fires an individual for being homosexual or transgender, so now we know what the second case is going to say, fires that person for traits or actions it would not have questioned in members of the different sex. Sex plays a necessary and undisguisable role in the decision, exactly what Title VII forbids. So now we know, even though we haven't gotten the second decision yet, we know what it's going to say. That Title VII not only makes it illegal to fire someone on the basis of sexual orientation, but also on the basis of transgender status. Now, this is a case that came from Michigan. Amy Stevens, who worked for a funeral home, told her employer that she was going through a sexual reassignment and would start coming to work dressed as a woman. She was fired. And she sued, and she won in the lower courts, and now it appears, from what Justice Gorsuch is saying in this opinion, it now appears that that he's going to side with her. She died of a kidney ailment just a couple of weeks ago, so she will not live to see this victory, Kate.
So in other words, this is not just affecting one community, Pete, this is affecting two broad communities. We're now talking about sexual orientation and gender identity being protected by that statute.
Yeah, and you know, this is the gender identity movement. This is really a nascent movement here. It's just getting started. This is the first Supreme Court ruling ever on this question of transgender rights. There was one that came up here a couple of years ago of a student from a Virginia school, but it ended up not being decided. The Supreme Court has never decided a transgender case until today. And it's an opinion written, it would appear, by Justice Gorsuch, although we don't know. We haven't gotten the second case yet. We should be getting it here in just a few seconds. We'll see if he wrote it as well. But he turns out to be the key vote on that issue as well.
And do we know, Pete, you mentioned states that already have their own state statutes, and this will now broaden that to other states. What happens in states where there's been resistance to this idea? What happens in states that have opposed transgender rights, for example?
Well, it's now illegal to fire somebody on the basis of transgender status. And, of course, these laws are administered by the Equal Employment Opportunities Commission. What usually happens here is if someone is fired and they believe that they were fired for being transgender, then they sue. And, you know, depending on where you lived up until today, you might or might not win if you lived in a state that had that coverage, or if you lived in a state that was in the federal circuit where the courts had said you can't do that. Now it's true nationwide.
There will be so much reaction to this today. I'm sure it's, I can't check my email right now, Pete, but I'm sure it's already pouring in from LGBTQ groups, advocacy groups. This is something they have, as you mentioned, been fighting for, perhaps even more important and significant than same-sex marriage was. Advocacy groups had said all along throughout this case, a gay person can get legally married on Sunday and get fired on Monday. That was their point when this case was being considered.
And pardon me for looking away from you, but I'm waiting. We all are staring at the court's website for the next decision to come up. They're supposed to come every 10 minutes, but it still hasn't been posted. But I can't emphasize enough what a stunner this is. That, you know, if Anthony Kennedy had still been on the court, then perhaps we would have expected this decision. But he's gone, replaced by a justice who's much more conservative, Brett Kavanaugh. Of course, Antonin Scalia died of a heart problem, and he was replaced by Neil Gorsuch. So, you know, can you imagine Antonin Scalia writing this decision? I don't know about that, but here comes Neil Gorsuch. Now, I will say this. Those people who were what they call textualists, who believe that you decide cases based on what the law says, did put their hopes in Neil Gorsuch. Because while it is true, indisputably, both sides here agreed that when Congress was debating the Civil Rights Act in 1964, nobody on that in the Congress was thinking about transgender status or sexual orientation. That's a for sure.
Do you think it reflects in some ways, Pete?
I'm told now, I just realized now that it's that the two decisions are combined together. So now we know that for sure it is 6-3 on both cases. But the hope was that Neil Gorsuch would say, it doesn't matter what was in the mind of Congress. All we care about is the words of the text of the statute. And that's why there was some hope that he might provide the controlling vote, and he has.
Right, not just the controlling vote, but actually written the opinion, you said.
Well, and not just the controlling vote, but given them, 5-4 would have won. 6-3 is a much bigger victory.
Right. Right. Does that speak to, you cover the court, you've covered the court for years, Pete. Does that speak to where we are as a culture right now? Can we read into this that perhaps culturally and societally we are more in favor of LGBTQ rights?
Well, I think certainly that was true for gay rights, because the Supreme Court has gradually gotten to that point where, first of all, saying if a state passes a law singling out gays, it can't do that, and then finally the decision on same-sex marriage, which was huge. But the transgender thing has moved much more slowly through the courts. It's really a much newer issue, and frankly, it's been fought mostly over the issue of bathroom access. Remember, that's what tied North Carolina in knots, and they finally decided to go in a different direction. So, this is a question that has not been chewed over a lot in the lower courts, and that is why it's somewhat surprising that the Supreme Court has sort of leaped ahead of all that. And so I think the simple answer to your question is yes.
And as someone who's covered the community and covered transgender rights, I can tell you that bathroom issue is something advocacy groups have really not wanted the focus to be on. They would much rather we be talking about these broader issues as far as LGBTQ rights.
Yeah, and it came up during the argument as well. It came up during the argument as well. The justices seemed to want to talk about it, but obviously they got to the bottom line.
Just to recap, a 6-3 decision out of the Supreme Court today, a landmark ruling banning discrimination in the workplace against anyone who is gay, anyone who is transgender. We will have so much more on MSNBC throughout the day, on NBC News Now, our digital channel, and also a full wrap-up, of course, on NBC Nightly News this evening.